Guys, let's move over to a heartthrob of this podcast, the Duke Blue Devils. We've got head coach Mike Elko in his second season. The defensive wizard was 31st in scoring defense last season, 23rd in sacks. Guys, Duke did a thing that they hadn't done in the last couple of seasons. They'd won 5 games combined in Dave Cutcliffe's last 2 seasons, and then they went and won 8 games. They went 8-5, 4-4 in the conference. They got off to a strong start. Obviously, drop a heartbreaker there to Kansas. A little bit of a blip on the radar, losing to Georgia Tech in overtime and to North Carolina by 3, and then eventually Pitt by 2. But all of these, the similarity between those 4 losses in the regular season, they were all very, very close losses, right? One score losses. Uh, Elko had his team believing, and Riley Leonard was a big reason why. Kevin Johns, the second-year offensive coordinator, had the Blue Devils up to 32nd in scoring offense at 32.8 points per game last season. Riley Leonard really burst onto the scene, which was a ton of fun to watch, not only through the air but running as well. He actually led the team in rushing yards last season, which, you know, uh, cup half full. Riley Leonard is a really good dual threat quarterback. Cup half empty. Duke didn't have a reliable running back last year. So, do they fix that this year? We'll see. Leonard is going to be the engine for this offense, but I think if Jalen Calhoun can get going, I think he'll earn some national headlines as well. Had nearly 900 yards receiving last year, a couple of touchdowns. And then Graham Barton is an offensive tackle who's mocked in the first round of the 2024 NFL draft by some. So, not it's not an elite offense. It's not a top 20 offense, but it's going to get the job done. And it's going to put teams like Clemson, like Notre Dame, like Florida State on notice as we go throughout this season. We talked about it off the top. We've all got Duke very, very high in our personal rankings. Garrett, you've got them second in the conference, making it to the championship game. Trey and I both have them going 9-3, 6-2 in conference. There's a lot to like about this team. They have run stoppers up front, Dwayne Carter, Jamian Franklin, who both return as key run stoppers. They were fourth in the ACC there last year. Brandon Johnson and Al Blades Jr. from Miami are good anchors back at the cornerback room. Miles Jones transfers in from Texas A&M in his 18th season of eligibility to reunite with Elko. So when I look at this team strength for me, I think the offensive line was really strong last year and gave Leonard a lot of time to throw, gave him time to run. I see a lot of that returning this year. Defensively, I wonder if they can keep up that pressure, keep up the blitzing, and be as effective as they were last year. But then again, that's Elko's pedigree. Overall, I think that they have a chance to do something that they haven't done since 2014, and that's win at least 9 games in the regular season.
Yeah, I am really high on Duke this year. Riley Leonard is the straw that stirs the drink, as you said, Mitch. And look, they have got a lot of potential to just make that offense even better this year. I think Jalen Calhoun is an awesome weapon. They've got a nice 1-2 punch with Jordan Moore. And you look at the games that they lost last year, you talk about the potential. They were all 4 of their losses were by less than 1 score. Like they were so tantalizingly close to something just amazingly special in Mike Elko's first year. They could definitely have the potential to reach that this year. I don't know what Riley Leonard's future NFL plans are. I don't know if he wants to stick around after this year, but they're building around him. They've got a great core of talent around him. And again, talking about guys that you just trust to run a defense, Mike Elko, and now as he's molding Tyler Santucci into the future defensive coordinator, I think he'll be a pretty solid one, especially learning under Elko. That Elko system is going to stop guys. That Elko system is going to be, keeping them competitive. We thought that's what they were going to lead with last year. The offense actually ended up being ahead of schedule. But I think the defense, as they get into year 2, we saw a big jump in year 2 of Elko's system at A&M, Notre Dame when he was there, even dating back to Wake Forest. So that year 2, you see a big jump typically. So Yeah, I'm excited about what Duke can do this year. I think they've got a fun schedule. That shout out to the season ticket holders in Raleigh Durham, because home games with Clemson and Notre Dame, that's awesome for those people. And yeah, I think that this could be a season that they talk about for a really, really long time. I also just want to shout out my guy Dwayne Carter again. Can we just refer to him as Wheezy on this show and maybe get a drop for him anytime he does anything big this year?
I'd be an absolute fan of that one. Look, for me, I picked Duke to be in the championship game because I think that they're going to be really good. If you look at the stats that are just up here on the screen, nothing about these numbers necessarily jump off the page at you. Obviously, the turnover margin, being second in turnover margin at plus 16, is a little bit ridiculous, but you have a defensive-minded head coach. Defensive systems take a little while to settle in. You have to get your guys, find guys that are the right fit. So you get a year of recruiting, a year of the portal in there, another year of production and figuring out what your role is and how you're supposed to play and terminology and everything else. All of these total defense numbers, 68th, a 105 in pass defense, 111th in third down defense. I think that's going to be a lot better. I think you're going to see some massively improved numbers in those categories. They don't have to be special on offense. Again, look at some of the losses that they have there. You look at, Pitt, lost by 2, North Carolina, lost by 3. I think they can turn some of those around. And if you turn just a couple of those around, you're looking at a 10-win season, which is what I have them picked to do. I don't think that they're necessarily special enough to win all of their games. I don't think that I'm as high on them, as I am on Florida State and looking at some of what they're going to do. But if you do look over at the schedule, I think that they beat Clemson. They're not going to beat Florida State. And I think I had them dropping to Notre Dame as well, just because I do think Notre Dame is going to be a pretty solid team this year. They're going to be pretty salty. So, but looking at that game's out of conference. You get the one loss in conference. You show up and play in that not the national championship, but the conference championship game. That's going to be a special season. You're going to get a lot of people noticing, and then maybe you turn that into a recruiting effort that can start getting some of those top end playmakers. On the offensive side of the ball, maybe you start scoring a little bit more points.
I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. This is not a Duke team of old when they were really scuffling. This is not the team you schedule for homecoming. I think they make a lot of teams really, really nervous. They're going to be explosive. I think they're going to be unveiling a lot of new surprises every single week.
My one cause for pause with Duke, I'll just throw this in. I mentioned this earlier with Florida State. You look for fluky stats that could spur a big run. Duke was second in the nation in turnover margin last year, plus 16. Those tend to regress to the mean. Those tend to, I don't know. I don't think Riley Leonard's always all of a sudden going to catch the turnover bug, but they did. They were very opportunistic on defense last year. They got a lot of takeaways, and that's just something to look out for, because the Vegas over-under is 6.5.
Yeah.
Vegas has a much different read on this team than, I think, not just this show, but a lot of college football media is starting to get, realize that Duke was really good last year. They're starting to really hype up that week 1 game against Clemson, but Vegas hasn't gotten on board yet. Whatever that means, you can read the tea leaves there, whatever you want, but just something to monitor and something that could give you a little bit of a cause for pause for Duke.
Hey, Duke was my darling last year. They smashed their over, and I will believe in them again.
Gracious him. How about